majority of that funding would go to development of the software as a service. So tech resources, Kenya is known as a silicon savannah. We have a lot
That's
of
very true.
yes, we have a lot of incubation hubs. We have a lot of spotlight and buzz happening within this space. However, getting the best and brightest is not the easiest of tasks. So, for us to be able to make sure that we get, the great sort of resources that we can have into our team is one. Of course, also scaling within our people or within our team is something that we found to be very crucial. And it was a great opportunity for us to be able to scale to other cities without necessarily having a footprint. So, for example, in Nairobi, which is where we have our HQ, we already have operations running in Mombasa, in Western Kenya, without having feet on the ground, which is a great soft landing or softer approach to us proving our scaling model as we expand into other countries, within the continent. So to answer your question, a lot of the bulk of the spend goes towards tech, people, of course, and then of course there's also a bit of marketing, which we've been able to do really well with in conjunction with the Facebook product team.
Allow me to jump in right here. Of course, we're seeing a lot of tech uptake happening in Africa. Of course, Nairobi taking quite the lead for Eastern Africa, but we're still seeing a lot of big household names in this particular retail sector, like Nakumatt, that is facing a hard time. But at the same time, we're seeing e-commerce platforms growing. Do you see a switch in this particular conversation where you see e-commerce platforms taking the biggest chunk of retail, and then it goes away from having a supermarket chain?
It's an interesting question, and it's an interesting example that you use by way of Nakumatt. I don't feel that space is truly saturated yet. If you can see the fact that you have other international players like Carrefour, which have aggressively entered this space locally, that shows there's a lot of room, and that's obviously in relation to the fact that traditional consumer habits in terms of the top of mind or behavior of me going to a shop to physically acquire my goods, particularly within the FMCG space, will remain. E-commerce, on the other hand, has really made its niche within the electronic space, the fashion categories, beauty, home and living, particularly for the fact that these always have the add-on feature of having quick fulfillment. And one thing that we, players like Sky.garden and anyone else within the e-commerce space, we feel that there's quite a bit of relatability. And I'll give you a perfect example of certain new entrants into the market, such as Decathlon, which has recently opened up a store here in Nairobi. So they have invested quite heavily into, pretty much the first of its kind sports warehouse. And they're essentially looking to adopt a brick and click model, whereby the same physical outlet where customers can get goods is also a place where they can also fulfill any online orders. We also have the likes of Butter, who Sky.garden works very closely with in terms of subsidizing or augmenting their existing retail base, whereby we do fulfillment from any of the retail stores to customers, depending on how close they are to an outlet. So there's a lot of coexistence within those two models, within the brick and mortar and within the online space. And as technology evolves and as customers become more comfortable with the idea of click and purchasing items, without having to physically be there, then we'll see quite a great upturn in that sector.
The real reason I asked this question is because we did back to some conversation that we've always been looking at, the likes of Walmart and Amazon. Questions being, can Walmart actually play in Amazon's league? Where you look at, of course, each and every one of them has a standing point where they can actually do better than the other. But of course, Amazon is still taking the largest chunk here. Coming back to you as Sky.garden, of course, if we look at Tuskys or Nakumatt or say Ochumi, these guys probably have a particular range of items, but you can have all of them at once. So tell me again, do you see your particular industry, the e-commerce platforms that are coming out each and every day, in the continent or in Kenya for start, changing the narrative?
Most certainly, most certainly. I'll give you a really good example. The best success story we've had on our platform is there was a lady who had been looking for a particular hair weave. She needed to have her hair braided. She couldn't find it within her space, within all the shops in her locality. She came onto our platform and she ordered, and this was not in Nairobi, this was in Mombasa. She ordered for, she saw that a vendor was selling it. She made an order, and this was at 5 p.m. 5 p.m. That product landed and was delivered to her salon by 11 the next day. Now, that is an experience that, for us proves the fact that, there's a lot more avenues in terms of the power and the efficiency and the scalability to how we are able to serve customers better. And for players like Sky.garden, which is a software as a service, we do not own inventory. However, what we do is we enable merchants, anyone who has products, anyone who has a good that they've identified a customer segment that they want to market effectively to. We've given them a tool that they can be able to sell outside of the physical premise. And when you look at these sort of cohorts, if you look at merchants who typically already have a customer segment that they serve, and then you expand this in such a way that you can aggregate the sort of demand that comes into their ecosystems or within their own web shops, and obviously enable them to make more money outside of their existing customer base, then of course that's a win-win. So customers have great access to products that are close to them or at cheaper rates. Merchants, on the other hand, of course, are able to get real-time settlement, which is what we do pretty effectively. And then, of course, the whole ecosystem, you're talking about, typically border riders, Uber drivers, you have food couriers who are all within that ecosystem who facilitate the exchange of those goods and service driven by e-commerce functionality.
Allow me to jump in, of course, in the interest of time and ask you the last question. We've seen Black Friday come and go.
Yes.
You guys have had a great time in Nairobi with Black Friday, a lot of items on sale at a very big discount. Christmas is here.
Yeah.
What should we expect?
It depends on what sort of customer segment you're looking at. So, the customers who have a higher discretionary income or disposable income would obviously spend quite lavishly on gifts. You're talking high-end TVs, you're talking, gaming consoles, high-end furniture, etc. However, within the the mid to lower middle class basket size, we see a lot of traction within the fashion space, particularly African fashion. So what we call Ankara designs, anything with an African print have done fantastically well. And this for us also enables it proves to us the fact that we're enabling merchants who are either making and doing these sort of designs themselves and marketing it to outside of the existing customer base. So we do have a lot of typically in Christmas we have a lot of people traveling to their rural areas, etc. And this is a great opportunity for us to be able to prove how we can do delivery outside of the main urban zone.